Hey guys, Forristicat here. Today I wanted to do a talk on the series Homicide Life on the Street. After I watched The Wire, and I found out that David Simon and I think what's his name, Paul Atanzio, created this other series called Homicide Life on the Street. I was interested, considering it was by the same guy, David Simon, who wrote A Life on the Killing Street. So I got into it, and instantly I was sort of impressed with sort of like the intro and sort of like the dark undertones of the intro sequence. And very quickly, I grew to love the characters. Tim Bayliss was sort of an interesting character to follow. Sort of like any character that sort of enters his sort of profession in like an entry level sort of position, and then sort of rises his way up through the ranks is pretty interesting to sort of see the character's journey. And we're seeing that in Southland now, up to season 3 of Southland. Sort of like you got the trainer guy, and like you got the other cop sort of training him up. So it's always interesting to see, like on the very first episode, like Tim Bayliss comes in. He's sort of like trying to get a feel for everyone. So that was interesting. I liked Munchkin, aka I think John Munch, and his sort of a pessimistic attitude, which was always prevalent in the show. And I liked all the characters pretty much in the show. They all sort of had a different aspects. They had different aspects to the Homicide series. Most of all, I liked Meldrick Lewis. He was sort of like this, sort of cool, laid-back sort of character. And I watched sometimes so much Homicide Life on the Street episodes in a row that I started like subconsciously like adopting his accent. So it was very weird, like walking around, sort of adopting his sort of southern accent or whatever. Nevertheless, the topic it addresses is very serious one: murder. So the thing that I really like about this show, and in my opinion makes any show great, is that it focuses on the fact that these are human beings that have these jobs. And as I mentioned before, we are in our life situation, we're humans. So any sort of TV series which neglects to focus on that aspect, automatically it's going to lose a lot of its impact. And a lot of these shows that sort of show, like for example, like a homicide detective working on a case where like a little girl was killed, and then they show a shot where he's like in bed or whatever, sort of staring at a wall, being sort of depressed about it or whatever. Those are the sort of things which really sort of make the TV series great, to show that hey, these are sort of these jobs are affecting these people's lives, because it actually affects their psyche so much, because it's such a horrible thing that's actually happened. Like little girls have been killed. And I remember that as they say, like when you first get your case, like you sort of, after a while, like it's just like, who's the dead guy, but the ones that according to Homicide, like that you never forget, the children. Like the children are always the ones that are it's always like a fresh sort of like shock to the system whenever like a children has that whenever a child has been murdered. The episode that's most memorable is of course in season 1, the Adina Watson case, I think, where the whole episode is just focused in one room with Frank Pemberton and Tim Bayliss grilling this homeless guy as to where Adina Watson, confessing, trying to force this homeless guy to confess that he murdered this little girl. And it's one of the most intense episodes ever. I mean, just where like Frank Pemberton is like he's about to like, or is it Tim Bayliss, like he's pushing the homeless guy's like face just almost up to this hot pipe and like almost burning him. It's such a ferocious scene, and it really sort of hits home that like who are these people to kill children? It's like we're meant to protect children, we're not meant to kill them. And so it really sort of really got under my skin. It's sort of like it's one of those episodes which you don't really forget. Frank Pemberton is a ridiculous character. The actor was unbelievable. It literally was like they just got this guy off the street and he's acting the same way in real life as he does in the show. He's very sort of tenacious. He's got very hard lines of personality. He's very opinionated, and the charisma and interaction between him and Tim Bayliss was really what made this show work for the first couple of seasons. Unfortunately, later on down the track, season 6, 7, or whatever, they did sort of stuff up, and it sort of, as comments on IMDb have said, like it became sort of more commercialized with more sort of like music, sort of the soundtrack sort of changed a little bit, and it lost its gritty feel, which sort of made the show what it was in the earlier seasons. So that's sort of unfortunate, but nevertheless, I kept on watching it because I've been so invested in these characters over time. What else can I say about the show? Just the fact that it shows how these guys were sort of like emotionally affected by the cases. That was great. I liked showing the sort of like how some of the cases become mundane, and like even though we hear a homicide, it might shock us, but to them it's like literally like, who's the dead guy? What do we got here? Okay, who's that body there? They sort of get desensitized to it over time. And the show was great, and it sort of lost its sort of spin in the last couple of seasons. But nevertheless, the first couple of seasons sort of what really made the show what it was, and the interaction between characters, and sort of like just showing like the human side to them before the homicide detectives is what sort of made the show really great. Showing these are like normal human beings like you and I. Tim Bayliss was sort of like cast as sort of like a little bit of a. There was always like it was always up in the air that Tim Bayliss is like bisexual in the show, and I'm not sure if the makers or writers of the show actually made any comment to that. But I think later on, like he goes in this weird character arc where he becomes like a Zen Buddhist or something like that, and then I think eventually sort of like they do drop a couple of hints out there that he's sort of that's his persuasion or whatever. I like the Mahoney storyline with this sort of like drug lord sort of coming back. I liked I think Juan Carlo Exposito is in the show as well. He was also like sort of the son of what's his name, Al Giardella, who was also a very strong character, sort of big bossy guy, doesn't take crap, wants all the cases from go to red to black as soon as possible. However that's done, just get it done. Also, that's right, when I was watching Breaking Bad, I thought, where have I seen this Gus character before? I knew I saw him somewhere before, for those fans of Breaking Bad, the main sort of villain in the later seasons. And then I'm like, I know I've seen this guy before, so I looked him up, and sure enough, like, this same guy, hard to believe, is Al Giardella's son in Homicide, Life on the Street. I like the sort of relationships, like how they sort of, the guys end up hooking up with the different girls within the units, and just like many of the simple conversations they have, sort of made the show what it was. And I love these shows where in between cases, like they're riding in a police car and they're just talking about normal things, or they're talking about like where to get the best crab cakes in Baltimore or whatever. Sort of like stuff that like grounds it in reality is what makes this show realistic. And so there's many times before, you got the trifecta: emotions, story, and characters. All of these are synergistic and feed off each other. So you got emotions, you got characters, you got story. You're gonna have a good piece of fandom on your hands. And Homicide: Life on the Street was definitely a long run. I sort of took my time watching it. It was interesting to see like the one of the other characters, how he went to the fire division, and how he sort of he killed one of the sort of drug lords in like cold blood or whatever, and there sort of was that little cover up in there. So it was sort of interesting sort of take, like getting the homicide detective sort of involved in a murder himself. But definitely a good moment was when one of the homicide detectives actually suicides, and then they say something like, he can't have a standing guard or whatever. So like, he's not allowed, because he suicided to have like a police sort of in uniform sort of like salute as his funeral is taking place. And then Frank Pemberton is like, like he's sort of ignoring the situation, like, damn, is this guy really that heartless that he's not going to input in the situation? And then right at the end, it shows like Frank Pemberton like right there, like staring right ahead, like saluting, as hard as he can. I'm thinking, damn, that was a fantastic episode to end to an episode. There was another episode where like they were playing a song, I can't remember what it is, it's called I Stand By You. So I'll stand by you, I won't let nobody hurt you, I'll stand by you until the darkest hour, etc., etc. They played that song at the end of one of the episodes where I think a girl got murdered somehow, and there was some sort of debate as to whether homicide detectives should get emotionally involved or whatever. And then Meldrick Lewis, he comes to the funeral or whatever. I can't remember because I watched this such a long time ago. Like there was some sort of, there's always sort of like it was up in the air as to whether or not he was gonna come or do something. But sure enough, they had the music playing at the end, and he was like dropping flowers, at her grave or whatever. But yeah, definitely I recommend everyone check out Homicide: Life on the Street. It's a procedural show, but it never sort of gets boring, and it's one of those shows that when you watch it's like you're hanging out with sort of old friends. It's sort of like literally like you're sort of walking into the office, in your head. And it's like, oh, I'm hanging out with my friends, like Meldrick Lewis and Algie Odella and Kellerman and everyone else. And it was definitely like a really good sort of ride to sort of to watch. And it was very interesting to see sort of like the procedures. They went from the medical examiner to like all the different angles which actually motivate people to murder. And they say it's a crime of passion, and how it's like, oh, it's always the angry husband, or a wife cheated on the husband, so the husband has to kill the wife as revenge or whatever. So it's just sort of like I said, this how it sort of shows like how mundane it can sort of get. That's like canvassing the area, going from like place to place. I'm thinking, damn, would this get boring sort of after a while? But then one of my favorite quotes is when Bayless and Frank are sort of having a little discussion in one of the episodes. I think they're on some sort of stakeout or whatever, and Bayless is those guys are like a family. I have never ever felt that in Homicide. We may be the best, the elite, but we are not a family. And then Frank says what is, in my opinion, the quote of the entire series. Frank says straight away to him, yes, we are, but we're like a real family, opinionated, argumentative, holding grudges, challenging each other. We push each other to be better than we are. That kind of thing doesn't happen at barbecues or ball games. It happens on the job where it's supposed to. Putting down a murder, the work itself is the most important thing. What we do is important. We speak for those who can no longer speak for themselves, and you're not going to find anything like that anywhere, not in LA or patrolling the grounds at Disneyland. I think that quote really did stuck with me, and whenever I see like a murder, I hear about it in the news or whatever, unfortunate news, I think about that line. We speak for those who can no longer speak for themselves. And we sort of watch TV shows all the time that like people get shot or whatever. It's part of the story arc, but nevertheless, Homicide: Life on the Street really did show the emotional impact that homicide has on families, and the unfortunate emotional trials and tribulations that actually motivate people to actually want to do something as horrible as murder someone. Homicide: Life on the Street, guys. Check it out. I'll be back with a review later on with some other stuff. Peace.